this, uh, either presently or in the future. My intention is to engage certain ideas, topics, um, talk about my own experience, talk about mine and the love of my life's experience in whatever capacity um, we can do that. Uh, the love of my life that I refer to as Shpressa, and she's not currently on this live stream, but uh, we were just hanging out 10 minutes ago, and yeah, we still love each other. Thank God. And we're reminded of that tonight. We just had a meeting with somebody where we had to kind of, well, in a sense, pitch ourselves, but not really, but just sort of like bounce our ideas off with somebody who's also very interesting and creative in their own right. So that's kind of a fun moment, and and then you start to just reflect on things, and it's yeah, it's really interesting. Uh, it's really interesting to think about how this all started with Spress and I. Um, can still remember. So it was 2012, and the weird thing is that I had just um, maybe half a year before that, so mid 2011, I broke off a relationship with my long term, I would say high school sweetheart, uh, a person that I really loved and respected, admired, but I just kind of knew at that time that I couldn't. I mean, we started dating, or we were in a dating. We were in a relationship, I guess, from the time that we were like basically 12. That was my high school, uh, slash, I guess that's middle school. Well, is it? Yeah, middle school. Um, for a long time, and it's weird. I haven't talked about this in a long time. Yeah, radical transparency, radical honesty. Uh, so I was with a girl that I had known my basically whole life up to that point. A little bit on and off, but pretty much more or less on. So I've always been a long-term relationship person, and the same basically is true for Spressa, although I don't want to speak for her. And and I have nothing but good feelings about the person that I was with through all those years. It was kind of crazy to, you know, kind of grow up with somebody in like while being in a relationship. But in 2011, when we were a couple years out of high school, I broke it off with her just because I just knew it wasn't right for either of us. Neither one of us was going to be the right one for the other, no matter what. No matter how much we love each other or loved each other, we were just never going to be the right ones. And that's kind of an interesting thing about relationships is sometimes you can love somebody and know it's not right, and then at the same time, your best relationship can be one where you love the person and it's often messed up and weird and messy. And there's so many like there's just so much oddness to that phenomenon. But I knew that I mean when I broke things off with my longtime childhood, middle school, high school sweetheart, um, I basically had the mindset of either I'm going to be like single my whole life, or I'm going to meet somebody who at least had this criteria. And the criteria for me was like somebody that uh, gets my art and who's art I get in such a way that they can come together. That's it. It's not like I didn't want to sycophant. I didn't want somebody to like say, "Oh my God, I love everything you do," and I also didn't want to meet somebody who um, that I would have to be that way toward them. You know, like I wanted a healthy dialogue, but actually somebody who cares enough to engage with the craft and the art of music. And I remember telling my aunt after I'd broken up with my long-term girlfriend of the time. I remember speaking with her, and she was like, "I really don't understand why you broke things off. It doesn't make any sense. Like you know." And I was like, "It makes total sense. Yeah, I get it. I get it. And I actually agree with you. It doesn't really make sense totally." And then she was like, what is it that you are looking for? What?" And I explained exactly what I just explained, but in less detail. I said, I'm looking for somebody who wants to make music and who cares about it as much as I do, and who at least understands why I do it, or why I do it, why I care as much as I care. Whatever, however I said it, I don't know how I said it. I probably said it really differently, but um, my aunt was like, "Wow, that's asking a lot. Um, you could go a whole lifetime without getting that." And I was like, "Whoa, okay. Well, then I guess that's the choice that I'm making right now. Like that's, I guess that's the stakes in a sense. Like you, you could sometimes you throw away something that everybody else thinks is good, and it's just because you just know something they don't." And what ended up happening was, I'm not even, I mean, but from the time that I had this conversation with my aunt, which was several months after I had broken off this um, relationship, maybe it was 3 months later, is when Spressa first commented on one of my songs on SoundCloud. I mean, literally like 3 months later. So it's the craziest example of how you should not underestimate your instincts, and you should not take too seriously the opinions of other people. But when Spressa then reached out, it was like some comments, and the comments were very different from. I mean, I didn't have like a large following or anything, but I had some people that would occasionally comment, and and there, sometimes you get a pattern of the way that people tend to engage with stuff on SoundCloud in the comment section in 2012. To be very clear, I don't know how it is now. You know what I mean? I mean, I do use we use SoundCloud extensively, which, by the way, I just want to say for the record, anybody watching this, um, the Flora SoundCloud profile is where I use that as basically like that's my version of the most public desktop that I can imagine, and this is with the participation of Spressa as well. But it's sort of me who has this obsession with posting things when they're not fully done and in demo form. And also, I tried it in the descriptions, catalog, uh, like when the idea was started, when the idea was resumed, sometimes notes about the production, lyrics, etc. And there's all sorts of stuff that on that SoundCloud profile that we'll probably never release, but I post there like almost daily, to be honest. It's like almost basically I use SoundCloud as part of our production process, because it's easy to go to like a SoundCloud playlist and then listen, and we can kind of imagine it like it is released, which is a big weird part of the creative process. Um, because you always hear music differently when it actually is for sale or it is released. So like no matter how many bazillions of times we've listened to our own music to try to get certain mix elements right or whatever, because we're doing all the mixing ourselves, mastering everything, trying to get the loudness and all the different individual variables right. You listen to it bazillions of times on different formats. You listen to it in the car, you listen to it on your phone, you listen to it on your computer, you listen to it on somebody else's stereo, you listen to it on this speaker, this Bluetooth thing, that blah blah blah. And eventually you have to settle on something. And shoot, I lost my train of thought. Never chase the rabbit too far down the rabbit hole. Good God. Yeah, but I had a good point. I think you all know where I was going with this. I'm trying to tell the story. Uh, and so, shoot, I need somebody to remind me where I was in the story. Well, in any case, Spressa and I met on SoundCloud. Her comments stood out, and and then we had this whole like funny courting period where it was like she reached out with these comments. I was intrigued. I listened to her music, and and I was just completely blown. Like I it's weird. It was just it's like hearing somebody that's completely in resonance with. It's not like, oh, she sounds like me. She was doing something completely different, but it's like the differentness was appropriate. Uh, the differentness was appropriate, and it felt just like we were in syncopato, in however you want to say that. Um, and then the funny thing was that I sort of made the first move in terms of being like, whoa, I'm really resonating with this person. Their music is amazing. They seem to like my stuff. Let's chat on Facebook. I was like, hey, can I message you on Facebook and take the conversation further? And honestly, I was thinking if we could get a really cool collaboration out of this would be such an amazing thing because, like, wow, finally met somebody who gets the wavelength I'm on, even if it's not exactly the same expression of that wavelength. And and then we started, and she was like, yeah, well, let's do it. And then we started chatting on Facebook, and it was like within a couple of weeks, all of a sudden, um, she was like, I mean, because we had this weird escalation of um, how we were talking to each other. So it's almost embarrassing and kind of cringy to read, but it it's very it reminds me of like those letters that you read from people that went into battle, like in the Civil War. Which, by the way, beautiful. I'm not, but it's more like that's beautiful when you read it for that context. But in our case, like when I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cheesy. It's so corny. Like, why are we so dramatic? What is it with like love that makes you dramatic and like instantly the most poetic? I mean, it's just it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, we had this big escalation of the messages, and then all of a sudden, Espresso was like, "I we need to have a call. I need to, we loved each other's music. We loved each other's voices, obviously already. But then I was like, oh my God, like now I have anxiety. You know what I mean? It's okay. She likes my songs, and she thinks she likes my voice. But what if she thinks I sound like a total weirdo or whatever when she actually hears me talk? Oh God! And I'm like, I don't know. And but I was like, I have to say yes. What am I gonna say? No, yeah, no calls. No. I don't speak on the phone. That would be a weird red flag. I was like, I gotta talk to her, but I kind of like the way we're going here. It's comfortable. We have all this stuff in common, and we're yeah, sharing all this stuff, and it's all good. And this is just a few weeks in. This is probably 3 weeks after the messages started, and it gets more and more dramatic and poetic and love lettery. And then she sends this thing about we have to talk on the phone, and I'm like, yeah. And then we do it, and the call goes like amazing. And I remember I was living in they call it Uptown, whatever that means, in Minneapolis. I can't remember the exact address. And I remember literally like again, full scale cheesiness, full on the cheesiness. I opened up like this old ass apartment window, and I was like, I don't know, I screamed out something like, I found her, or I don't know what the hell I said actually, which is kind of weird. But it was basically maybe I just screamed. Maybe I was just like, ah! I don't know. It was a feeling of like the best love ever, and the feeling I don't know, man. Yeah, it was interesting. So then we kind of continue like at that point we start having more calls then. So she starts like I don't know if it was FaceTime audio at that time, but I think FaceTime was definitely a thing because that was how we were able to talk. Or it was at least I don't know what it was, but yeah, we were having some voice calls, and then within like 3 days, and I'm like, wow, this is so comfortable. And like some of those 3 days were like some of the best conversations in my life, feeling like, wow, this is amazing. And then like all of a sudden she says, now we have to Skype. And at that point, I honestly didn't even know what Skype was. I swear to God, Minnesota boy, didn't know it. I really didn't. I had no. I mean, at that point, this is like again 2012. Who's using Skype back then? I don't know. Some people were. And so I'm like, oh, you mean so we're video chatting? And I'm like, oh my God, the same again, anxiety. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, she's seen some photos of me. Now I'm gonna be on the video chat, and I'm gonna be like, I don't know, twitching or doing something. I'm not gonna look the same. All that anxiety. And then once again, we do the video chat first time, and afterwards I'm just like, wow, wow, might have actually met the one. Um, and then this goes on for like 6 months, and it becomes, and we've told the story, but it, we would leave the video chat on while the other one was sleeping because of the time difference, so that the other one didn't feel lonely or whatever. It was just, and again, not for any weird reasons, but just because it was like I wish I was there in the way that a normal cou- couple would be together in these moments. So there's a comfort on both. There was a comfort on both sides with that scenario of keeping an eye on each other. Like, hey, I'm just gonna be kind of a random. It were basically an early version of streaming, but like streaming ourselves just going to bed. It was kind of funny. Um, but yeah, so that's the story with us. I'm gonna look at some of these comments. I haven't looked at the comments because I feel like it'll just completely derail my points here, um, since I will want to engage with them. But okay, so Asish has asked, "Are you high?" That's a good question. I wouldn't know how to answer that. I don't know what that exactly means. Death for Breakfast says, "Love you guys. Hi from the Pacific Northwest." Hello to the Pacific Northwest. Um, Shadow to Love says, "Keep going always." Thank you, and same to you. Drew Blackwell says, "Love that." Uh, Mary Rainwater, All About Love, new Tesla song. New Tesla song. If it hurts so bad you feel the need to hide away in the dark, get a mirror. Understanding begins within the acceptance of the self, all of the self, even the crazy crap. I agree with that. Robert F. Sullivan. Peace, love, cool. Mary ran on her 12 step. Hmm. Mike Hudspeth says, "Hey Cole, I still have the signed postcard from you and Express on display. Big fan of what you do, bro." Appreciate that, Mike. Yeah, the signed postcards. That was toward the what was it? Toward the middle middle to late part of 2019, I think. Um, and it was around the release of Missing Home, I believe. Very glad you still have that. That means a lot to us, and your support in general means a lot. Hmm. Sheesh says life hasn't been kind to me lately. One-sided love has ruined me. Your songs help me get through it. One-sided love. That's interesting. Hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I really am sorry to hear that. Uh, Trying to avoid cliches here. Um, One-sided love. I think one has to settle on a baseline. They have to say either love is not one-sided or it's not for me. In other words, again, you got to draw a pretty heavy baseline, I think, on these things and say, I would rather not love at all. I mean, that's at least a lesson I've come up with. And you have to really mean it. And you have to really figure that out deep inside of you of like, if it's not two-sided, if it's not both ways, if it's not mutual, if it's not a give and take, then I don't need it. It's not part of my reality. Then I'm not going to accept that. I'm just gonna that then that's not the thing, you know. So like and then basically that primes you for every time your instincts tell you that something is one-sided, you will know and you will have the strength to cut it off before it becomes much more complicated and difficult, and it won't even feel like a cutting off. It becomes even on a micro level. It's like you just won't even get involved with the kind of people that would be the people that would um, not reciprocate your love, or the person, I should say, the person that would not reciprocate your love in the sense of like a intimate relationship. Uh, I don't know. That's the best I got on that. But it's, you know, everybody's got to find their own wisdom in this, I guess. Uh, Zandillan 8, just want to say your music has gotten me through so much. Thank you for all you do from South Carolina. Thank you very much. I love your love story. I appreciate that. Say anything vibes, definitely. That's where we're at. I don't know what if that's a reference to like a larger meme or something that I'm not aware of it, but this is definitely say anything vibes. My boyfriend and I love you. Also, are you going to release your latest album on vinyl? Yeah, the album will come out on vinyl. I can absolutely assure you of that. It's just a matter of logistics. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of the vinyl industry is really weird. Uh, I didn't realize this until our our generation record, but the the vinyl industry is quite squeezed in terms of production times. And I think there's a whole bunch of interesting reasons for that, but I'm not going to sit and pretend like I know exactly why. I mean, I assume that vinyl is still a little bit of a niche thing, even though it's kind of like technically popular. I imagine it doesn't really sell at scale. And I think really COVID, for whatever market there was and is, I think COVID, like with all things, I mean, basically the COVID lockdowns, I should say, uh, really disrupted that industry in ways that it probably did others as well. So vinyl in general is kind of an uncertain thing in terms of like production times, and it's very hard to like time a vinyl release to the release of a digital product, especially in a case like ours where we make a lot of changes up to the last second. So it's like we don't really 100% know the track order up until close to release because it's kind of a living thing up to that point. We have a lot of back and forth about it, and it kind of has to like, it's like when something's going down a funnel, and it's like you have all these songs or whatever funneling around this. Like we ultimately are aiming for this singular release, but you have, maybe quite a lot more songs than you think you're going to release, and then they just funnel down, and you're like trying to distill and distill, and then even when you get it, like you're like, oh, now that is the 10 songs at the very tip top of the funnel where it's about to pour out, is the issue of, oh, track order. And then when you're listening to the track order, you might say, well, that one song just really doesn't fit, and we should swap in this other one that wasn't even in that 10-song funnel. It gets quite complicated. So the vinyl thing, in our case, almost always has to happen after the digital thing is released. And then you find out, like, okay, now if I, after this album is released digitally, now I have this track list. It's like, now it's set in stone, more or less. Uh, and then you look at you're just at the mercy of whatever the production times are for vinyl, and no matter kind of who you work with, it's pretty far out there in terms of production times. But if anybody knows like really really good and prompt vinyl distributors and manufacturers, we're down because we're always trying out new partners on all this stuff. um, yeah, that's just how we kind of roll. But yeah, it will be on vinyl, to answer your question. Been listening to you since I could remember. Love the both of y'all. That was from Huriyata Pashao. Thank you very much. I probably didn't pronounce that right, but try. Drew Blackwell, Our Generation is Perfection. Thank you very much. Um, Means a lot. Uh, I think I'll probably wrap this up. Uh, do I think we'll come to Albuquerque, New Mexico? Um, yes, definitely. The question of when, hard to say. We're in the near term, we're trying to stick a little bit closer. Trying to stay to Europe a little bit for a few, maybe the next year or so. But that's not to say that we won't do one-offs and special and little runs in the U.S. We love being there. Um, so we'll see what happens. Southern California or LA. We have a lot of family and friends there. Once again, unbelievable what's going on in Southern California. Hearts are with you guys. Have a lot of people personally affected, and it's, you know, what can you say? It's terrible, and it's a thing you really think about, like just the idea of like what are people gonna do to rebuild? I mean, how does it work with like insurance claims and whatever? Like this is kind of I just can't even imagine the nightmare for people to lose not only their house but all of their potentially their closest possessions. I mean, that's assuming you don't have any loss of life, which thank God has been. I mean, well, any loss of life is terrible, but it hasn't been as bad as it could have been. But just I saw a video. I'm sure some of you have seen this as well. Saw a video coming out of LA that was firefighters actually pulling out photo albums and these kind of priceless items out of houses that were still on fire. And I thought that was deeply moving, actually. And that is, I think that's actually kind of right. Like as long as you know there's no potential for, you're not doing that at the expense of somebody who needs rescuing. Um, that's a beautiful, heroic thing to do to actually prioritize these, people's memories and mementos uh, by putting yourself in harm's way. That's a very, I mean, it's absolutely a gorgeous thing for people to do. But yeah, it's a tragedy what's going on over there. Would love to come back to Southern California as soon as possible, but nothing is on the horizon in the near term. But for 2025 in general, yeah, would love to come back, and I'm sure we will find a way to do that. Wow, friend of yours lost her house insurance backed out last minute. That's insane. What 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 even happens at that point? That's literally insane. Thank you, Meg. Appreciate that. Um, yeah. Well, I mean, question is how late do I want to go here? Probably not too late. Had said some stuff, read some comments. This is probably a good place to uh, to wrap it. I'm sure you guys all have a lot of better things to do, or at least other things to do, as we all do in some sense. So I just appreciate you guys taking the time and being here with us. Truly, truly, truly appreciate it. And we'll check back in soon. So thank you.